Welcome to our Parenting in the Age of AI. Annie Murphy is going to be our moderator and host. And I am the Director of Information and Instructional Technology here at the district. And I'm going to let Annie introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Annie Murphy, Director of Student Services here in the Union School District, and I look forward to the presentation tonight.
And there's Jamie, just in time to introduce himself.
Hi. Can you all
So we're live
We
and
can
we're
hear you.
getting
Yep.
started. We just need you to introduce yourself,
hear?
please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Nunez. I am the senior manager at Common Sense Education.
Great. So I'm going to stop sharing our screen because we don't need to see ourselves in pictures because we can see us live. Um, so uh, just setting the stage for this, we are going to be releasing Google Gemini for Education here in the middle school starting in January. And to prepare for this, we've already had some AI lessons for the students, as well as in our Smart Start and digital citizenship benchmarks. And then we also have been doing professional development with teachers and staff. We decided to choose Gemini because it was the safest. It is the Google for Gemini for Education, not the public version of under 13. Uh, and we did it because it was protecting student data, which is the most important part for me. But it also doesn't allow they don't save any of the data for training other AI models. And then also they're using a special Learn LM as their I guess their language model, and it is built just for education. That said, I know there's going to be lots of concerns, and we're hoping to address those. And Annie will be starting off with questions.
All right. I'll be helping present questions to the panel, but tonight, if you have questions as you're hearing conversations, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I'll be monitoring that, and hopefully we'll get time for Jamie and Lisa to share about that. So our first question, many people have concerns on safety and rules around AI. So, what are some of the guardrails that parents should put up for their children before exploring AI? And what kind of things do we need to be aware of?
I'm gonna let Jamie answer.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Here's how I would think about it. I would ask myself three very important questions. One is the tool or is the way you're using ethical and in alignment with what's happening at the district? If it is, we're being very mindful to communicate what that looks like for our child. The second is after using the tool, can your child discern critical thinking skills in the ways that they are evaluating and incorporating the use of AI in their regular classrooms or their engagement? And then finally, I would ask specifically around peer engagement, is the tool itself reinforcing or perpetuating a sense of isolation for your child? If it is, we want to be really mindful that the more your child is engaged in tools like AI, specifically social companions, we can talk about that at some point. We want to be very clear that that's not something that you want to encourage as a household. So again, guardrails that are included around ethical use, disseminating, discerning critical thinking skills, and being really mindful about social engagements that they might be in or on.
Yeah, I can definitely second that. And some of the things that I've incorporated in my own life and in my classroom, because I do teach every other Friday, is just to make sure that I can see how students are accessing the internet and how they are using whether it is Gemini or other pieces of AI. It seems to be embedded in so many things these days that we really can't control it. And being in charge of the tech department, we're getting requests all the time. Can you block this? Can you block that? And while teachers do have wow, the teachers do have a bunch of options to use to block certain sites. Uh, Kids are very, very smart and have ways around it. So we also monitor it on a second string, basically. And so I think knowing what your kids are doing, if I'm at home, I would make sure that I know that I have like limitations because we do care about screen time as well. We don't want kids, just sitting there doing the doom scroll of, just being online and just being, addicted to just consumption. We really want to, emphasize active learning and I think we have to teach kids the difference between teaching and using AI as a tool and not for cheating. So I think there's that definition needs to come from home and from school and setting up those conversations and just talking about it.
Which brings a good point. So here in our district, we're going to have Gemini, but students have access at home to their computers under, their web browsers. So are there like ideas or like rules that you would have at your house or help give parents suggestions for rules around AI? And kind of like what personal information do AI tools use like Chat GPT or Snapchat's AI, different from, what we have here at the district. As students are at home, we know that they have access to those things as well. So what kind of support would you suggest for parents around that?
I think, we really recommend a product called Bark, which you can use at home, but we use it in the district as well to kind of monitor different um, algorithms basically that might show that a student is sad and considering hurting themselves, or if they're, looking at weapons or just doing inappropriate content. And having that kind of filter at home, I think, is important. You should know what your kids are doing at home, and whether that means you're watching, excuse me, over their shoulder excuse me, sorry, watching over their shoulder or having them access the internet just in front of you so that you can see what kind of things they're doing and looking up. And then also just setting, those conversations and rules. And I know Common Sense Education has a ton of contracts that they can um, parent and child can actually sit and talk about and make promises to each other. And I think that is actually more powerful than just making rules and just saying no, don't do it.
Yeah, I'd echo. And first, I'd just like to highlight some of the stuff that's happening at Union that I really admire. The first is that Union does a really great job of reinforcing these skills, AI literacy skills in the classroom. I think it's really critical to know and ask your child what it is that they're learning with respect to some of these lessons, like what is AI, and big terms like bias or even information can be very nebulous or very vague for the child. So kudos to you, Lisa, and the work that you all have done. The second thing I would just think about is I would really just break it down really simple for your child, right? We know very sensitive data like date of birth or information like a child's full name. Sometimes our kids don't necessarily understand how that information can be considered private. And so we want to just be really clear with our kids what we consider information to be private, date of birth, things like that, home address. I can go on and on around what that information is. The second point that you asked, Andy, that I would encourage families to think about is really think about where the data is both stored and where does it actually go. And I think it's very difficult to assess that with AI tools, but certain tools like ChatGPT, I don't know how thorough they are with that, but they do provide an option for you to not have their information shared. Again, I don't know to what extent that's actually truthful or not, but they do have an option and a setting on their screens. And again, I do want to point out that the Gemini that Union is using, I think, spot on for you all for mitigating some of those risks as well. So I think the final thing I'll just say is just around rules. I echo what Lisa shared. I think you want to just be really clear that, like any other rules around social media or even engaging online, We want to make sure that the child has a say in it, not in what they'll do, but making sure that you're validating your child's interests and curiosities and you build that into your guidelines. You want to be very clear that if something goes wrong with your child, that there's an out, there's a way for that child to communicate with you. And finally, again, I'll just reinforce what I started with. You want to make sure that the child is not inputting any information, like personal data when they're prompting. So.
Great. Lisa, we do have a question that came in the chat kind of around our Gemini. So were there evaluations of multiple programs before choosing Gemini?
Yeah, so Gemini was Duet. It was it was Bard. It has gone through a bunch of iterations, and so we were looking at that. In fact, we had purchased it for just Cabinet and a couple of other key decision makers. And we tried it for probably a year before even looking at other products too. So Chat GPT we also looked at. They do have a school edition, but it is quite costly. And then there are things like Magic School AI and there's Canva AI. We have all of those turned off right now because we did not receive uh, FERPA and privacy agreements for our student data on those. And so we are really cognizant about student data privacy. And so we use an organization called CITE, CITE, and they basically have lawyers, so we don't have to go through that rigmarole. And they give us privacy agreements that qualify for meeting that criteria that California requires of us, which is pretty strict. I've talked to people in other states and they're like, wow, you guys are, if you guys can get a data privacy agreement, then anyone can because we have such strict standards. And so we also looked at, um, Gemini for education because it was free. We already pay for some certain Google services. And so when they offered this for free, I want to say it was in June, they announced it. We turned it off until we could train more and learn more about it. And there's been lots of testing on it that we're doing on the back end to make sure that it is safe and that the data isn't going anywhere and that it is not giving, inappropriate answers or responses, or that it just gives you answers that, like this is the copy of a test and you want the answers to it. So, it again is probably the best quality in protection right now. And I'm very wary of trusting anyone, including Google. So, having that extra layer of privacy agreements with the California Student Data Privacy Agreement is just, that to me is the first standard any app has to meet in our district.
Awesome. Thank you. So something that comes up a lot and that we hear around AI is students using it to cheat. And so we hear that a lot. We hear that from parents and teachers and even students themselves. So how do you know if your child's using AI to write their essays? Is there a way to stop them from cheating? Is there an impact on their learning? If they're using AI, will it make them like too lazy so that they don't do their work?
Geez, that is a tough one there.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I start, Lisa, just
Oh,
giving some
please.
context here? I think as parents, first, we just have to be able to trust our kids. And I know most of you do, but you have to recognize that the backdrop of writing an assignment when, the candy is right in front of you can be very daunting and difficult for a child. And so I think the first part of your question, the first thing I'd consider as a family is, your child's writing, when your child uses writing to an extent that reinforces their critical thinking. You know how your child uses or misuses things like Wikipedia in the past if they're a little older, but I think you know your child best, right? And so I think we want to make sure that we trust that relationship that we have with our kids first. And then you know that your child will likely be tempted. Again, I'm making some assumptions, not anyone on this call, but you certainly know families that might have that. the encouragement would be to then help your child think about how they use a tool like AI, um, to be that thinking partner to understand where a child gets stuck. But we want to encourage that rigidity, right? That challenging aspect when it comes to writing specifically. And so there's not a very clear way. We can say a bunch of tools do a great way of monitoring and checking whether a child has used AI, but it's not 100% accuracy. And so the question is again, or the answer I think you would encourage is a level of trust. And then we want to teach the child the skill of how to use these tools for writing to mitigate any sort of cheating or unethical uses of it. So
Agreed. I think having this, the contract again, going back to the common sense education piece where you make a contract with just, digital media usage, you should do one with AI as well, because the thing is there are so many things that AI can do, and you should have a line of what you would want your child to be able to do and not be able to do. You definitely don't want them manipulating pictures and doing deep fakes of, the superintendent or their teacher. There are so many things that schools are facing right now because of AI. And most of them are blocking it because it is a scary world. We need to have our kids think about the ethical use of AI, as well as how our teachers are going to do that as well. I think, we should always cite our sources. That's something we've learned in, information literacy from the very beginning that we teach, starting in kindergarten. We don't take other people's art and put our names on it. Um, the same thing. We don't put an AI generated paragraph that is not ours. And we don't, we have to cite where we get our information from.
So on that note, is there the difference between using it as a helpful tool, like a calculator, and using it to cheat? And then on the flip side, is like, what if your student or your child told you that the AI gave them a fact that's completely wrong and you know it's wrong? Is there a way to teach them to be like skeptical and double check the answers and use that critical thinking kind of piece? Because it is it is available for students. So how do you at home kind of help them with that critical thinking to be like, well, yes, it gave you this answer, but we don't know, like, how do we check that?
Yeah. I think one of the ways to do it is, and Google's pretty good at this, using this in their Google search. You can actually, when you ask a question, it'll give you an answer generated by AI first, and you can look on there to see where it's cited from. So sometimes, because it is Google, it might be citing an ad. It's not always going to be the truth. And so we have to teach that in information literacy. In fact, that is one of the things that we do say in our AI lessons with kids, that AI is not always right. It is based on the internet, and everything on the internet is not true. So you have to verify everything. And just like adults would use AI to write code, they still have to debug that code and look at it. They use it for writing, big, long, research papers, and to help them, generate ideas. They still have to make sure that those things are true and valid. So we have to teach that to kids. We always have to, there's that one picture of Abraham Lincoln saying, like it's totally a joke, but it's like, he, because it was on the internet, it was true. And like we all know that Abraham Lincoln didn't have the internet. And so you have to use that critical thinking cap to basically, you know, figure out when things are true, and you can look those up. We teach them in information literacy and media literacy classes how to cite sources and how to find valid sources. And I think that fourth and fifth grade, that's the really big piece of finding reputable and respected sources.
So one thing to understand as a parent is that the whole point of AI is in their model has shifted in that they want the user to be engaging as much as they can, right? And so one of the things we I would encourage is as a parent, teaching your child how to ask or prompt AI to clarify its responses. And then what you'd like to do, as Lisa pointed out, is really then look for things like plausibility. How accurate are those responses over time? And then you want to test out that plausibility with multiple sources, right? And so asking and double checking the root of those sources of what they shared is a really sort of helpful, real practical tool that you might be able to, or activity that you can encourage your child to develop. So
There is a question about, is there a program that checks if there is plagiarism?
I think the thing to keep in mind about AI is AI creates new and which they call novel and different data and it and ideas. And so because of the fact that AI is so good at doing that and is getting even better at that of making new and uh I don't know, maybe even creative ideas, it still cannot be checked by a plagiarism tool because you can say, right, like I'm a fifth grader and you can make AI do lots of different things and it's getting so intelligent that we do have to be careful. But if there is an AI tool, I mean a plagiarism checker that says they can tell whether or not something is AI generated or not these days, it's probably a bridge that they're trying to sell you.
the promises of Grammarly, right, Lisa? Yeah, I'm right there with you. It is very difficult, right? It is very difficult to check whether or not your child or if your colleagues use their tool, but you will start to sense that the writing, the prompts, often have a similar structure to them, obviously, depending on the prompt. They use if this, not this statements. There's a lot of dashes. You can kind of start to tell some of the tone of these prompts. But again, I'm very short-sighted. It all depends on the context. And but again, I would very cautious. I'd be very cautious to invest in plagiarism checkers, as Lisa pointed out, they're not very accurate given the changes in AI.
I'm going to actually launch a poll right now because I want to see how much you know about AI. So, audience out there, if you can answer this, we would love to know how much you know so we know how much parent education we actually have to do for this.
And while they're taking that poll, Lisa, one of the things that popped up in, I don't know, I would say it's more of a comment than a question, but I think you can address this. It's about digital literacy should be taught in every grade in middle school. So it reinforces that critical thinking is imperative while they learn to use AI. And I think that you can talk about how we do digital literacy actually in all of our grades.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a benchmark document that it goes from TK all the way to eighth grade, and every grade level has 3 to 5 lessons on it that have to do with information literacy, media balance, um, digital citizenship in general, and then they all spiral and they all also um, build upon each other in future grades. So we have media literacy lessons with every single grade level. And, California has made it mandatory that at least students be taught about media literacy every year. It is in it is California law as of I want to say 2 years ago, and we had added those benchmarks in the winter before it happened. So we definitely are cognizant of media literacy and information literacy and teaching kids how to think about information that they get on the internet as well as information they read in magazines, because not every, you know, we have to teach them about bias and bias exists everywhere.
Thank you. One other question, and is there transparency in when teachers may be using AI to grade assignments like essays?
Hold on one second. I just need to end the poll. So for teachers to use AI, we would hope that, if they do, they've told the students that. Again, it's an ethical statement that they need to make. I personally do not believe in using it for grading assignments. If anything, I would rather have the students submit their first essay to AI to get feedback and then improve it from there because kids always do not believe in revision. They don't understand the why, right? I wrote it right the first time. And so when they actually submit it to AI, it can give them some feedback just like the teacher could. But I feel like the AI feedback piece could actually make them stronger writers and even stronger critical thinkers. So I would rather see the student using it instead of the teacher. Can teachers use AI to grade? Absolutely. They just like students can use it to cheat. Um, it's not something that we police, but we definitely would hope that the ethical statement that we put in our guidebook, because we do have an AI guidebook that is about instruction, and it says that you should always be very transparent when you're using AI. Oh,
Jamie, did you want to say something?
I would probably just encourage with your child's teacher to have that conversation. And but I think, Union has some amazing teachers, and I'm not being paid to say this. I authentically believe the good people that are part of Union, but I would have that conversation, right? If you suspect that the assessments are being validated or reinforced using AI or the language might be off, just, a real simple email about what that process looks like. You might find that the teacher is developing a certain approach for how they're assessing. That's a great opportunity for dialogue, I think. Mhm.
Okay. So as we're using AI, we're thinking about screen time because we know there's screen time issues already. We hear parents talking about students being on their screens too much. What do we need to know beforehand when it comes to wellness and emotional health around AI? So, for example, AI friends. So we've heard about kids forming emotional attachments to AI chatbots. Is this healthy? Should I be worried if my child says AI is their friend? We'll start with that.
I am I think California just passed a law with common sense, right? About chatbots, and that common sense actually fought for. And it's beautiful to have someone like common sense. I'm sorry, I'm not being paid to say this for to common sense either, but I believe that that what they're doing for families and for educators and for kids is really trying to be the voice of reason and the advocate for the privacy as well as for their safety. And so with emotional health and wellness, they are doing a lot of initiatives that have to do with student health and especially their mental well-being. I think there's also the new lessons that we have that are out by Common Sense Education for digital citizenship that have a lot to do with that emotional health and wellness. The thing that scares me about chatbots um, and how they can try to become, friends and give that emotional support, we have to remember that AI is a machine. It is not human. It is artificial, and it cannot tell you the difference between truth and ethics because it is not human. It does not have that analytical conscience. It is dangerous. And I believe that if you look at uh online and you just look up AI friend, there's actually devices out there that, that you can wear around your neck as a lanyard and it basically talks to you through your phone, and it's listening to everything that you're saying and doing, and it responds to you, and it's kind of creepy. So I would be really, really hesitant to allow any of my kids or students or friends to become, dependent on AI chatbots.
Yeah, common sense. We don't recommend that your child engage with a social companion and these bots until well after they're 18 years old. We don't recommend the child use that before that. And the reason for that is that when we started to assess and test, we found a number of things. One is they were often reinforcing and pre-medicating your child or assessing things that obviously they're not qualified or the tool's not qualified to do. As I pointed out earlier, the whole point in these companies is to engage with your child because there's a monetary sort of benefit for your child to do that. And then finally, we've seen that these companies in these platforms don't often have the appropriate guardrails. So if a child is talking about various issues like suicide or even drug use, those guardrails can easily be broken or bypassed through. And so there's many, many reasons that we've done research over. I'm happy to share that research report with the parents here, but I also would regularly check in with your child, especially as they get older. The amount of online issues and the exposure to the content where they are asking questions, I think that's very serious. Where as a parent, our collective obligation is to not only check in with a child, but to make sure that they have those outlets. So if they're not willing to talk to you or their peer, do they have that the real life adult that they can speak to? So, gee, sorry I turned into a counselor all of a sudden. I just thought of my little 10-year-old, but yeah, these are very serious topics. Yeah.
But no, it's good. It's good advice to give because we do hear these questions a lot. Um, Around that too, is there a right age to start talking about AI? So if your child's only in elementary school, is this something that you need to worry about right now? Um, any advice around that?
I'm going to say AI is everywhere. It's embedded into everything. I mean, we have Alexa, um, we have Siri, we have so many different things that are the Internet of Things that, we have in our own houses and on our phones and on our computers and, on our refrigerators. Oh my goodness. When I walk by my refrigerator, it tells me when I'm thirsty. Like it says you haven't drank in a while. It's kind of weird how it knows stuff. And so I think um we have to be really careful about what we're allowing it to collect, especially in our households, especially with younger children. I don't think there's a right age, but I think as soon as you can, you want to teach them about media balance and um, AI. I don't think there's any age that's too early. I would talk about the benefits, but I would also talk about the threats and things to be concerned about because we have to build that healthy relationship with technology. And I would like to see a lot more conversations about it, at an early age. We do have some AI lessons that we're giving to, TK and K, but it isn't using AI. It's actually about how, things on the internet aren't true or how um, AI can't be your friend. It is just a computer. So there are simple things that you can tell your younger children about when it comes to AI or even just media use in the first place.
I would also just, in addition to what Lisa shared, I would encourage you all to think about how AI is shifting from a sort of a prompt tool where a child is typing or a person is typing to voice engagement. And one of the things we want to be really clear with is that thing we started with, which is reinforcing the narrative of what personal information looks like, making sure, to Lisa's point, that not everything a computer says or responds to you is actually true. Um, And as you pointed out, Lisa, that, AI as a tool can help to answer something, but it's not a real person, right? And, all those things that make us human, I think, are of benefit to start having those conversations with our child early on. So,
So we have a couple questions in the Q&A. So since they are starting to teach students how to be financially savvy, can we use AI to learn to create ideas and maybe learn how to start a business? This way, they learn AI can be tactical tasks, but the other side is where they use their critical thinking and skills and creativity.
Absolutely. I mean, we want, ideally in my dream world, if I could wave a magic wand, all tech would be used for the four C's, which are critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. These are all skills that the future of work is going to need, right? We've seen study after study that in, 2030, these jobs that don't exist yet are going to need those skills. And those are skills that are human intelligence based, not artificial. So we need to really, stress that with just social skills and social emotional learning. I feel like, Union does a really great job of looking at the whole child, and we have to do that at home as well.
yeah, very quickly, that's a beautiful question. Please consider doing that prompt with my child. That would be amazing. And if she becomes a millionaire, I will give you a cut of some of that. But I just love, I'm sorry, my daughter's in the background as we're saying, giving me the what are you talking about? Just as you pointed out in that question, I think it's just a great example, right? You start with something that your child is interested in, or maybe you're interested in. You're using a tool, to Lisa's point, reinforcing those four C's that she's mentioned. But then you're pulling away from that into actually doing the activity or the actual engagement, and that formula I think is a success for your child, not only to use AI, but more importantly to then discern to take action over whatever those things are that you're learning, in this case, financial literacy. So kudos to you for that question. And yeah, it's very, very powerful. So
So I think they say UMS, but I'm just gonna district wide. So has the district done a benefit versus risk threats analysis to determine if it's net positive for kids to be using such chatbots at this young age? And if we have, can the district share with all the parents?
So no, I don't believe we've done any kind of analysis when it comes to chatbots because we don't allow them.
Right.
So it's kind of a tough question to answer because we can only analyze what we allow in the classroom, not what is allowed at home or on other devices. So the risk and threats analysis has been done out there by other people, by other agencies and by other top researchers that can say that, the chatbot is a dangerous tool, that we don't want a chatbot.
Okay, so for our district issued Chromebooks, parents don't have admin access, so we can't install parental control tools, change settings, or view browsing history. Could the district consider giving parents more control? If not, do you have advice on how parents can ensure students use the device appropriately and within time limits?
So you definitely can get something like Bark, which you don't need to have any administrative access to the Chromebook for because it's done on your internet at home. And you can set time limits for when the internet can be accessed. You can set block, you could block YouTube if that's what you wanted to do. You can set it up to be whatever your parenting style requires. I love it. It's not, I believe it's under $10 a month. It's fairly inexpensive. And I believe they have a Facebook group that I belong to that actually talks about, parents saying, this is what's out there. Like, I found this on my kid's phone. I mean, it is the best source of information. So I know what to look for too, and what we know we need to block as well.
I can speak to this a little bit with the Chromebooks. If your student is on their Google Chrome, Um, that's weird. Why did I come twice? If
Yeah,
the
that was weird.
students, yeah, if the student is on their Google Chromebook and they're doing, we use Bark in the district, and so if your student, let's say it's over the weekend, is searching inappropriate things or searching self-harm, I'm gonna get the alert, and you might get a call from me on a Saturday or a Sunday. I have done that many times, or a Friday night. So we do monitor if they're in our system in Google. Now, if they're on the, searching in something on your own, that's different. But if they're in their Google, then I see the alerts. I check probably 300 to 500 barks every single day. Some are severe and I get notified right away. And then I let the school principals know and they handle it and talk with the students. And if it's something major, you'd probably get a phone call. But yeah, we're monitoring too on our end. Um, so if you ever get a call from me, then you know it's because of something that might have popped up.
Yeah. And as Annie's backup, I can tell you those alerts are real. They're definitely happening uh quite often, and especially in the evening when they're at home. It's just so hard. I commend Annie for her diligence.
Okay, so big picture as a parent, maybe it looked like we had a lot of parents that are familiar and have, with AI, but maybe you're feeling overwhelmed and behind. What is the single most important thing you need to do as a parent to kind of navigate this situation?
Talk to your kids. I just feel like having that conversation is so important. You don't have to be their friend. You don't have to be their bestie. You need to show your concern, show your care, show your love, and definitely, be realistic with them about what's out there and what your hopes and dreams are for them. I think that in itself is probably the most powerful thing a parent can do. Um, I want to just address something that Marty said in chat or Q&A that he has this child in high school and they've said the tools that check for AI gives a false positive result and so it's not reliable. That's exactly my point. So you know, I feel terrible for someone who was accused of cheating when they weren't. Again, thanks Marty for that comment. And sorry, back to Jamie on the question that you asked, which was really, deep.
I mean, here's what I would do right after this call. If I were you, I would probably get a glass of water or whatever it is that you're drinking, and I would just either splash it on your face or just reset. It's perfectly okay to reset. And today and this evening could be that day that you do that, not only around AI use, but reset just in general around tech. If you feel that whatever it is that your child is doing, whatever it is that you as a family are doing, I'm sounding a bit preachy. I'm just saying it's perfectly okay to reset what those standards and those engagements are. There could be certain tension, a moment of tension, but I just would encourage you to set whatever the stage, whatever the values that you have with tech. Your child, assume that your child will make a mistake because that's what we all done. And they are engaged in a period in life where they're exposed to tools that are very, very powerful, right? And that can potentially expose them to content that they might not be ready for. And it's okay to have those conversations and reset. I think that's bound to happen. And I would just encourage you to think about and role play what those conversations could look like, both with your child and with your significant other, if you have one, or your extended family. So,
So we did talk a little bit about, being worried when students are online and what they're doing and monitoring, and we've given some advice around that. What happens though if a student bypasses filters or misuses technology or bypasses the different walls that we have up for them, or
Yeah,
even
we
our own?
yeah, we can't stop that from happening because it's like whack-a-mole. I think we usually find out about it either because Bark alerts us, or Securely, which is our other filter for students. It'll tell us that a student went to a site and then all of a sudden their history is missing. Like it tracks everything. We can look up a student and see like, oh, they weren't on the internet at all today, yet they were on, the teacher can see that they were on their computer. The principals have access to this and they can see, if a teacher has a concern. Um, Also, just, I always tell teachers, stop, you're not sitting in the front of the room or standing in the front of the room. You need to stand at the back of the room so you can see all the screens. Or when you're using Securely Classroom, which allows the teacher to see all the screens while they're in the classroom, if all of a sudden you're not seeing the same screen on that student's computer, but you're seeing something else, it's probably because they broke the filter. So I think that they're always searching for ways around the filter. And I always say if they just spend that much time and energy on actually just doing the assignment, it would have been great. But kids will be kids and um it's a learning thing, especially in middle school and fifth grade where their frontal lobes are starting to develop and puberty is happening. It is a big deal and it's just going to always happen. So we just have to be there. And this is school. This is where they're supposed to fail and learn.
I think at home, the addition that I'd share is we want to be really clear that we want to be transparent with our kids over being over feeling like you're like a detective or you're trying to there's a sense of surveillance there, right? We want to make sure that you're letting your child know why you block something, why it's what's blocked and why it's blocked, and tell them sort of the expectation moving forward. I think that goes with the second thing we've been kind of sharing is the theme around setting very clear boundaries. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is ensure that your child is actually self-monitoring. I know it's very difficult to do that, but we want to make sure that we are aware of what sites are problematic, both for privacy implications as well as broader sort of issues that you might have. So that those are just things that you might be able to talk about at home as well. So.
Okay, and if you have any other questions, please put them in our Q&A. Lisa, did you want to launch our other poll?
Sure. Sorry, gonna get it up here. So the poll I'm putting up now is about what are your concerns about AI usage for your child. So you can answer one word or you can put up to 200 characters.
These are great questions, by the way, Lisa. Thanks.
Thank you.
As we're waiting for families to fill out their concerns, is there any other things that you think that we need to touch upon tonight around AI and just supporting students and their learning and families?
I would actually like Jamie, I think Common Sense Education has a I want to say like a parent information about AI, a site, and they also have one for educators.
Yeah, that's right. I can share on the link or resources to follow for families to be engaged. We have a family toolkit around AI. I encourage you to look at that if you want to know a little bit more about what these tools are, what they do, and the impact that they might have. There's all sorts of resources we have, but I will certainly link to them. I will also follow up with just sort of a general deck that I've seen and an overview of what is happening at Union. I'll send it over to Lisa to send to families or yourself, Annie. And these are just trends that you should be mindful of that are just aware. And then just some, as I pointed out, some conversation starters that you might be able to engage with your child if you're having a hard time talking about some of these things at home. So.
There's a great question in the chat about any tips for encouraging kids to enjoy outdoor activities more than the screens.
There's a great book that I read to students when I have the opportunity to go into the library, but I can't, it's called Dot, not the Dot, not the Peter Reynolds book, but it's called Dot. And it talks about Dot surfing and Dot tweeting, and then they bring the next part of the story where she's actually surfing on the waves and she's actually tweeting with birds by bird watching. And so it's a cute little book that talks about screen balance and media balance and just screen time and getting out there. I think the other thing is join your kids outside. Kids don't like to do things alone. And if they do, great, but um, give them opportunities to go outside. Definitely not today because of the rain, but hey, that could be a learning opportunity too.
I was gonna say that, agree with you, Lisa, on that, is that if you can do something with your child outside, maybe you guys go on a like you create like a scavenger hunt of things you're gonna look around in your neighborhood, or, just finding time each day to even go for a short walk. It's good to get outside, get the fresh air, gives you bonding time, also gives you that opportunity to have those conversations that, like we said, might be difficult at times, but then if you are outside having them, it takes you out of the house environment, out of where the screens are and all of that. We live in San Jose. We get a lot of sun, so we have many, many sunny days here. There's lots of great trails around here, awesome parks, just lots of things. And, maybe you create a schedule like every other day, we're going to do some kind of outdoor activity together for 20 minutes. And if you can build on that, that might encourage your child to want to do more things outside as well.
I would just add and echo what you both have shared. I think I would look at it in three ways. The first is, what are the tools that inspire in your child to kind of develop and engage in outdoor behavior? What are the documentaries, things that you might instill in your child as they're using and engaging in tech? The second is how you are actually using tech when you're outside. I'll share on the link in Edutopia a great article by Edutopia that inspires kids in outdoor learning and engagement using some very practical tools that they have. Most of them are free. They're a great, great project here. I'll add it onto the chat there, Annie. And then the third is families have pointed out really inspiring your kids through basic play, creativity. I think that goes for adults as well, right? We don't get outside as much as we could. So maybe looking at yourself in the mirror this evening at some point before the end of the week and just say, how can I continue to model these behaviors for my child? So
I think one of the things I also want to share is there a right way to use AI, right? I think we focus so much on the negative and well, no, we need to block it. And I think, some of the cool things you can do with Gemini for Education is you can um, say, tell chat the Gemini that you are um, needing to do an interview with somebody from the Boston Tea Party, for example, and then having the chat with Gemini be that person from the Boston Tea Party, and you could ask it questions and learn history that way. Do they still need to double check their facts? Yes, but it's just like anyone else telling a story, right? I think, the other piece is, maybe the teacher explained how to do a math problem and you just didn't get it. There's a lot of different ways you can do that with Gemini. I said, teach me the Pythagorean theorem like I'm in third grade, and it did it, and I actually finally understood it. And it's been how many years that I went through just knowing that it was a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew how what the formula was. But again, it showed me like what visually what that was. So I think we have to learn how to use AI to help. It could be such a powerful tool for individualized learning. And I am so excited for that because it gives, you know, the 20% of kids who aren't successful in a regular classroom an opportunity to have a lesson tailored just for them. You could make it into a Swiftie song and learn, learn the presidents of the United States. I mean, it's incredible how many different things that AI will allow a kid to do with creativity, and with, critical thinking. So I do think there are different ways we could be using AI, and I hope that when we do open it up for student and teacher use, teachers already have it, but when we open it up for the classroom, that it is used in these creative and fun ways where it's not looked at as a cheating tool anymore. It needs to be looked at as an actual just a tool that it is on the computer.
I don't think we have any more questions. There is a comment about AI is also teaching how to make a clone of oneself. It really helps people with time. This gets people focused on compassion and humanity. Unless you have questions in your poll.
Let's look at the poll. I'm going to end the poll because there's 11 answers, and we're going to view the details. Oops. Share results. I don't know if it's going to let me share them, but oh, look, I got to share my screen, I think. Um, Sorry. So we can see that, the critical thinking children without bots, we have all of these concerns. And then like plagiarism, no critical thinking by using AI bots, more screen time. Yeah, all of these things are, you know, we need to teach kids that it's not the absolute truth that, AI is putting out there. So these are really great concerns. So yeah, I we will look at these, especially Annie and I will look at these, a lot more closely, and hopefully we can address them uh, in I'm going to stop sharing my screen, um, in our follow-up with when we publish the video of this and when we publish the links that Jamie added, and some of the resources that we have as well.
We can create a little FNQ for people. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Anything that Jamie or Lisa you want to kind of close on to? Oh, wait, one more. There's just a question that just popped up. What do you think is a reasonable maximum amount of screen time per day at home for a healthy balance?
We at Common Sense often like to think of that question and ask ourselves, how is technology being used? I think there's the time that's associated with passive consumption. Your child is just scrolling through whatever videos. There's a learning kind of engagement that is helpful. And then there's a sense of producing or creating something. I think as a family, you have to decide how much time you're allocating for all that. And as we pointed out a second ago, how much we're then balancing that out with time away from the screen. And so I might just encourage you to, instead of asking that, or I should say, instead of posing it as a total amount of time, thinking about how you're separating that time into the things that you would like your child to be doing. So,
Yeah, and one of our big initiatives this year with the technology in Union School District is media balance and screen time, and distinguishing that in the classroom of whether we're consuming information or if we're um, actively creating and using technology in academic ways. And so, if again, if you saw your child doing, a video game, that's going to be totally different than them uh, or it's going to be actually quite similar to someone just watching YouTube and scrolling through all the different YouTube videos. However, if they're doing something like drawing on Adobe, or, creating their own comic book, or, playing in Canva with just different art techniques, there's so many things that we can see, that are creative and collaborative and, just fit those 4 C's that make, my educator heart very happy. And yes, Ruchi, we will definitely be sending out the link to the YouTube that will have this, recorded webinar. And we'll also probably send with that, we'll probably send out the links that Jamie shared.
Have added the links into a couple of the questions. So for people, if you go back through right now, the Q&As, you can find a couple of the links that Jamie shared.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa and Jamie, for sharing your knowledge tonight. It is so appreciative. I know this is, AI has just really taken storm over the last, I would say, year and a half. And, we know our kids are using it. I think it's great that the way our district is looking at it and how to kind of put some parameters and things around it to support students in using it in a successful way. And as a parents, we have the same concerns as you. We don't want to take away students' critical thinking. We want to actually use it to help increase their critical thinking skills.
Hmm.
And as Lisa said, we are go through classroom walkthroughs and we are looking at how technology is used and making sure that it's not just consumption and that students are using it to increase their knowledge. So appreciate both of you. I hope the parents and people online tonight got some great information. And yeah, this will definitely be shared. We'll send the link out to all the participants tonight as well, and it will be on our district website.
I
Thank you,
also want
Annie.
to say a special thanks to Jamie for taking so much time out of his busy day and from his family. So thank your family for us. We are so lucky to have so many collaborative discussions with Common Sense, and I think they're the best resource out there for parents and for educators. So thank you so much for being here, Jamie, and sharing your wisdom. I couldn't have gotten through this AI rollout without Common Sense and your guidance. So thank
You're
you.
amazing. Thank you very much, Lisa. I do apologize, families, for sharing a few minutes. They're starting a few minutes behind, but I wish you all a beautiful rest of your Thursday. Thank you all for being alive today.
Thank you.